Is Jay-Z selling out the ting? This is the InSight. For over a month, the internet has been buzzing with the news of Jay-Z and Roc Nation's historic deal with the National Football League. The news came to us by way of a press conference or media event during which Hove and the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell sat down to take questions from a thoroughly intrigued group of journalists. The fallout has been epic, largely centered around how and why Jay-Z could even consider signing a deal with an organization that had failed to do right by Colin Kaepernick, the national anthem kneeling player stroke protester who Jay-Z had been so publicly supporting up until now. Critics of this line of questioning suggest that Kaepernick signing a deal which included a non-disclosure agreement basically makes any and all allegiances to him on social justice issues null and void, which is a legitimate opinion except for the fact that seeing as nobody will give Colin Kaepernick a tryout, we have no idea whether the NDA affects Colin's capacity to continue protesting and raising his voice on issues concerning black people. Today, however, we're going to take a step away from the hype and take a close look at whether this deal actually benefits black people. No apology, I'm a Garveyite, so I will be assessing it from a Garveyite perspective. We're now big no friend. Firstly, it is necessary to note that the deal struck by Roc Nation and the NFL is said to be in relation to entertainment and social justice. So we are clear that Roc Nation will be putting together the roster for halftime shows and other NFL-related events and products. But what exactly is the social justice element of this thing? Maybe the words of Jay-Z himself might be helpful.
We take it back. I think that we forget that Colin's whole thing was to bring attention to social injustice, correct? So in that case, right, this is a success, right? This is the next thing, right? Because there's two parts of protesting. You go outside and you protest, and then the company or the individual say, I hear you. What do we do next, right? So for me, it was like actionable item. What are we gonna do with it? Like everyone heard, and we hear what you're saying, and everybody know I agree with what you're saying. So what are we gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So reach millions and millions of people, or we get stuck on Colin not having a job.
In the same media event, Roger Goodell sat ably by Jay-Z and said the following.
To go to Jay's point, we listened to our players. We understood what our players were saying, and we created a platform of which to help drive change in communities that Colin has raised and that other players have raised. And this partnership, in addition to the entertainment aspect and bringing football and music together, is going to help us make even greater change. And we call it protest to progress, right?
So, Kaepernick protests, Jay-Z says this is a success, which would seem to suggest that A, Jay-Z's capacity to sign a deal with the NFL is in and of itself a success for black people, and B, the alliance of football and music is somehow going to bring about change in communities, presumably black communities in the USA. Together with Jay-Z's statement of being past kneeling, the move has been hailed by some as a phenomenal step towards black economic progress. When rumors of the Roc Nation mogul receiving part ownership of an NFL team hit the media, this perspective seemed to only get stronger until that rumor was confirmed untrue. But in order to explore this further, we have to look at the reality behind the commissioner of the NFL sitting beside the mogul of Roc Nation and what that actually means in reality. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL. The NFL is known as what is called a trade association, which is, quote, an organization founded and funded by businesses that operate in a specific industry. An industry trade association participates in public relations activities such as advertising, education, political donations, lobbying, and publishing, but its focus is collaboration between companies, unquote. Which basically means that the NFL is a business made up of businesses. Each team is a business in and of itself, contractually bound to act in each other's collective interest. Roger Goodell is therefore appointed and employed by the 32 owners of the 32 NFL teams. He himself is worth approximately $65 million. But as NFL commissioner, he represents the collective wealth of 28 white men, 3 white women, and 1 Pakistani. Heads of the 32 organizations who preside over a league in which black men make up 75% of the players, but 0% of the ownership. Let's take a look at a few of these owners. David Tepper, owner of the Carolina Panthers, worth over $11 billion. He accumulated through a career in finance and hedge fund management. The Panthers as an institution is worth about $2.5 billion. Next up, Stan Kroenke, owner of the Los Angeles Rams, worth $8.8 billion. He made his money primarily as a real estate mogul and had to give up a stake in London's own Arsenal Football Club, where real football is played, in order to be allowed to buy the Rams. The Rams are worth approximately $3.8 billion. And finally, for now, Martha Firestone Ford, owner of the Detroit Lions. Her grandfather is the one and only Harvey Firestone, the man who built the Firestone Rubber Company and got rich exploiting African labor, particularly in the nation of Liberia. This in turn had a monumental impact on the company of Henry Ford, who benefited from Firestone exploitation of African labor in as much as his cars used Firestone rubber tires. Henry Ford's grandson would go on to marry Martha Firestone. And that is the combination of a fairy tale in European imperialist and American capitalist romance and love story. So basically, her money is the family business. The Lions are worth about $1.7 billion. Time does not allow to go into the political affiliations and the philanthropic work of these owners, except to say it's an interesting story. But the essential point here is that though Goodell is worth less than Jay-Z, who as we know is now worth over $1 billion, when Roger Goodell comes to the table, he represents generations of white wealth and the interests of 32 billionaire organizations not owned by black people. Jay-Z, though worth $1 billion, is an individual with a company, which is itself a subsidiary of another company, Live Nation Entertainment, which is worth $15 billion. He does not represent the collective wealth of any group of black people. So when we look at an image like this, please know that these two men do not come to the table on equal footing. This is not to punch holes in Jay-Z's business acumen. He is undoubtedly well adjusted to meet the demands of a capitalist economy, and there's a lot we can learn from his rise to prominence. This is also not to deny the work he has done on documentaries that shone a light on the lives of Khalif Browder and Meek Mill, which certainly exposed the extreme injustices inherent within the so-called American criminal justice system. This is also not to discount the work he has done in bailing out protesters against police brutality and other acts of philanthropy. This is not even to deny that the NFL deal is in the current context good business. It is simply to say that whatever the deal is, it is not black business, representative of black people, or the success story attached to any protest by black people. Unless, of course, you class more hip-hop at the Super Bowl halftime show as a net benefit. Personally, I think we have to explore what is really at play here. While the media event attempted to give the impression that the NFL Roc Nation deal was a success attached to Colin Kaepernick's protests, the actual direct response to uppity kneeling Negroes was put into effect on the 23rd of May 2018, when Roger Goodell released a policy statement laying out the NFL's position on protests. The policy reads, 1. All team and league personnel on the field shall stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. 2. The game operations manual will be revised to remove the requirement that all players be on the field for the anthem. 3. Personnel who choose not to stand for the anthem may stay in the locker room or in a similar location off the field until after the anthem has been performed. 4. A club will be fined by the league if its personnel are on the field and do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. 5. Each club may develop its own work rules consistent with the above principles regarding its personnel who do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. 6. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, will impose appropriate discipline on league personnel who do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. All that was preceded by these very interesting words. Quote, the 32 member clubs of the National Football League have reaffirmed their strong commitment to work alongside our players to strengthen our communities and advance social justice. The unique platform that we have created is unprecedented in its scope and will provide extraordinary resources in support of programs to promote positive social change in our communities. Sounds exactly like what he said at the press conference, right? Soften you up right before telling you where to go. So if black people are not even empowered enough to decide when, where, and how to protest, what makes us think that the same people giving us these rules are going to sign a deal designed to empower us? The truth is, Jay-Z is a big fish to us, but to them, he's a relatively small fish, except in one essential area: cultural capital, defined as the cultural knowledge that serves as the currency that helps us navigate a culture and alters our experiences and the opportunities available to us. Cultural capital functions as a social relation within an economy of practices, systems of exchange, and comprises all the material and symbolic goods without distinction that society considers rare and worth seeking. As a social relation within a system of exchange, cultural capital includes the accumulated cultural knowledge that confers social status and power. In other words, the NFL deal is an attempted power move by the NFL designed to help them navigate the storm of black protests and capitalize on a community's respect for a cultural icon towards their own ends. The symbolic value of a hip-hop icon rubbing shoulders with the NFL elite in turn opens up opportunities for the NFL to take advantage of black labor, the black consumer value, as well as earn from the mass revenue accumulated by our cultural products, more specifically in this case, music. Protest movements can be a volatile thing. And as the old European war saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. So when they say they want to create space for black voices and athletes and communities to be heard, essentially they mean they want to buy out the movement and co-opt it so that it never represents a threat to the current social order. So when Jay-Z said to the NFL, you need me, I don't need you, he was absolutely right, as they stand to gain more, far more than he does from this deal, and certainly far more than any of us do. On the subject of co-opting a movement, Omawale Malcolm X launched an incisive critique on the March on Washington in 1963.
Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders begin to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you. They kept you on the plantation. And Negroes was out there in the streets. They was talking about, we're gonna march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. So, and right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the black revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. The Carlisle Hotel is owned. Once they formed it with the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the big six, and told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more. $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they've nothing but Frank James and Jesse James and brothers. Soon as they got the setup organized, the white men made available to them top public relations experts, opened the news media across the country at their disposal, and then they began to project these big six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was talking this march talk on Hastings Street. Is Hastings Street still here? On Hastings Street. You was talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue, and down on, Fillmore Street, and Central Avenue, and 42nd Street, and 63rd Street. That's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the big six ahead of it, made them the march. They became the march. They took it over. The same white element that put Kennedy in power, same clique that put Kennedy in power, joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep.
So we see, not much has changed. The so-called powers that be will always seek to control how, when, and why we do things. And they will continue to be successful as long as we are more concerned with breaking the glass ceilings of the institutions they have built than with creating our own institutions. Which brings us seamlessly to Marcus Mosiah Garvey. 100 years ago, the UNIA-ACL launched the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation, which put 3 ships on the seas to facilitate international trade and social intercourse across the African diaspora. In the book Race First, the ideological and organizational struggles of Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the UNIA-ACL, Baba Tony Martin writes, quote, Garvey began work in May 1919. The line was accordingly incorporated on June 27, 1919 in Delaware with a capital stock of $500,000. The shares had a par value of $5 each and individuals could buy a maximum of $200. Garvey described himself as the biggest shareholder, unquote. Along with this, the Negro Factories Corporation could be said to be a trade association made up of a number of independent businesses through which black people produced, distributed, and sold their own goods and services. The Negro Factories Incorporated employed over 1,000 black people in Harlem, New York alone. Finally, you heard me mention Martha Firestone Ford earlier, right? Well, in 1924, the UNIA-ACL sent an estimated $50,000 worth of agricultural and industrial equipment, as well as a team of experts to Liberia, where they planned to relocate the organization's headquarters and migrate thousands of families on the land that the UNIA had previously purchased. When the delegation landed in Liberia, however, the equipment was seized and the land eventually sold off. As Baba Tony Martin informs us, quote, the 99-year lease by Liberia of 1 million acres to the Firestone Rubber Tire Company added yet another possible explanation for the repudiation of Garvey's scheme. Then Liberian President King, with encouragement from W.E.B. Du Bois, was making up his mind to grant Firestone the land about the same time that he was rudely thwarting Garvey's aspirations. Experiences like these is what led Marcus Mosiah Garvey to say, quote, billions of dollars have been lost to the Negro race within the last 50 years through disloyalty on the part of successful Negroes who have preferred to give away their fortunes to members of other races than to bequeath them to worthy institutions and movements of their own to help their own people, unquote. So today we have to ask, to what extent are black people as a group more inspired by recognition in white institutions than with our own ability to build for ourselves? Can an organization that does its best to stop black people from engaging in just protests ever truly build anything to benefit black people? Is this even really about Jay-Z, or is it more about our collective aspirations as black people worldwide and who controls our models of success? Is Jay-Z's deal more relevant to the economic aspirations of black people today, making Marcus Garvey outdated? Or is Garvey just as relevant to us today should we choose to take up the challenge? Those are the questions, and this is the InSight. Peace and blessings, kings and queens. We're back with another InSight. Thank you for your patience. We took a break over the summer and I had to come back to deal with this rather controversial issue. You know what I mean? For all the Jay-Z fans out there, we're not taking a shot, you know what I'm saying, at the hip-hop mogul. Enough respect to Jay-Z and his success, but we really do have to analyze this thing because it is actually bigger than him, and we have to look at the relevance of this thing to our people at large, our children and our aspirations as a people. So I hope ones and ones understand that. As always, we encourage you to hit up the comment section, comment, like up the video, share, and if you have not yet subscribed to gotKushTV, make sure you subscribe to gotKushTV. We have some very, very big things in the making, kings and queens, and you don't want to miss that. Check out the Black Youth Economic Show and stay tuned for more updates. And do remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got Kush.
gotKushTV is supported by Better Marketing Mastery, the Hidden Science Academy, and Ancestral Voices.